Okay, so hello everyone and welcome to our webcast and our live demo today. The topic of my live demo is centralized long-term archiving. And before I start the live demo, I want to give you a short overview of our solution in case you don't know it yet. And then I introduce the features I will demonstrate in the live demo. Let me start with a few facts about Point Software and Systems. Point Software and Systems is a independent software vendor for storage and data management software, founded in 1994. Our entire team, the product development, support, sales, we are all located in Germany, in Siegen, and Siegen is about an hour from Cologne. We have a lot of small customers who manage a few terabytes with our solution, but also very large customers with several petabytes. We have a worldwide reseller network, and we work closely with the major storage vendors like NetApp, Dell EMC, Scality, or Claudian. Our Point Storage Manager is a file-based tiering and archiving solution. The basic concept is summarized easily. The storage manager allows you to move inactive files or archive files from your primary storage to capacity optimized storage or to an archive storage. For this, the file system is analyzed, then we copy the data which matches to a defined rule set to the archive storage, and finally we replace the original file on the primary storage with a small placeholder. In most cases, the file age is used as a criteria. As target systems, we support disk-based systems, tape libraries, special warm appliances like NetApp with the SnapLock feature, and optical media and object storage as well. In the live demo, I will start with Windows source system and a disk-based NAS as target. This graphic here illustrates the entire workflow. So first of all, we copy files from primary storage or a local file system to a secondary or archive storage. Optionally, you can set a retention period, for example, to 10 or 20 years. This period can only be extended, but not shortened. During that retention period, files cannot be removed from the archive. But to comply with certain legal regulations such as GDPR, we offer the so-called privileged delete, which enables special user accounts to delete files before the retention period has been expired. And this action is, of course, locked, so you get a protocol of the deletion. Okay, and in the next step, which can also be done at a later time, the original file in the primary storage is replaced by a stub or by a link. Yeah. And in the case of a read access, the file is made available directly without restoring it to the primary storage. And this is what we call pass-through on read. And if the user changes a file, it is stored on the primary storage with all its modifications, and the original file in the archive remains untouched. And then when the changed file has aged or matches the rules again, it will be archived with the next archiving job, and a new file version will be created in the archive. Yeah, this is a way how the original version is being protected, and how the point storage manager creates a file history. Yeah, I will show you this in the live demo. Yeah, and I would also show you live the so-called user-controlled archiving. Files to be archived can be defined centralized by the IT administrator using rules, or the files can be defined directly by the end user. So with our user-controlled archiving, we provide a software extension for the end user. For that, the administrator predefines some templates based on our policy framework, and then the options will be shown on the end user's machines. Yeah, and the user can simply right-click on a file, and then, for example, archive it or move it to the cloud. Point Storage Manager can write the same data set to up to 4 devices in parallel. So this way you could write your data, for example, to multiple clouds or a tape device in parallel. So you can reduce the dependency on a single technology or a single provider. By setting priorities, you can define from where to read by default. So this is very helpful to read from the fastest archive device, or to reduce the egress cost. Of course, you can start with just one device, and then a new one can be added in a few years. Yeah. For example, you want to switch from a tape device, tape-based archive device, to an object storage, and then you can use the internal migration feature. Yeah, and the process runs in the background with any interruption, and you can start the migration with just a few steps. Yeah. And because we use very large container files, the entire process is accelerated. Yeah, I will show you in the live demo how easy it is to move from one archive device to a new archive device. Okay, and yeah, that's all. After this theoretical part, yeah, let me now switch to our to my demo environment. Okay. So I'm going to show you the Point Storage Manager in my demo environment, which basically consists of a Windows 2019 server and several target devices we can connect to. In your environment, you could also use Windows 2012 R2 or 2016. We support them also. So in my demo environment, the Point Storage Manager is already installed, and the installation and the initial configuration takes less than 20 minutes. So before I move on with the configuration, I would like to show you the initial situation on my file server. As you can see, I have some files here in this demo folder. and I can open them normally. For example, this PDF file here. And when I open the file properties, you can see this, the size and the size of disks, which are pretty much the same. And these files aren't processed by Point Storage Manager yet. Okay, so this is the initial situation on my file server. So let me open the Storage Manager administration interface. So the first step before we create any tiering or archiving policy is to configure a so-called archive device, which is the target device for our files to be archived. So we support cloud object storage, we support disk devices like NAS, tape libraries, and optical libraries as well. And you, as I've mentioned before, you can use up to 4 devices in parallel for the same data set. And for example, you could archive your files to 2 different cloud providers, or keep 1 copy on your local tape library. As you can see, I've some pre-configured devices here, and in my case, I'm going to use a network attached storage. So let me create one. So I'll use a standard hard disk device and give it a name here. So let me just copy the path to my network storage. Okay. So here you could enter a different account to connect, but I'm going to use the service account to connect to the folder on the NAS device. Okay, so I'm now connected. It is here, the new NAS device. Okay, let me close this window here. The next step is to configure a so-called storage vault, which defines a process of a source system, rules, and policies, and 1 or more target systems. You can configure up to 64 storage vaults per storage manager instance. So when you create a new one, create a new storage vault here. First of all, you enter a name here. So let me type something like Windows to NAS. Okay. And here you can select the type of your source system. So for Windows-based systems, for Dell EMC Unity systems, NetApp FAS, we support the so-called stubbing method, which is fully transparent to the user and the application. So, and for any other NAS, we can leave a web link behind, which is an URL or an HTML file linking to the archive. And for Dell EMC Isilon systems, for example, we can use symbolic links. And some customers prefer not to leave anything behind. and they can access the archived files by our web interface. And yeah, in my demo, I archive files from my Windows file server to a NAS device. So I choose the point tufts here, which means this is a small agent for Windows-based systems. So in the next window, I select my source computer, this one here, and the actual source folder. Let me take this one here. Okay, so point storage manager can be configured in a 3-level architecture. So, for example, files are first moved from the source to a cheaper storage and then to the archive at a later time. In my demo here, I'm using the archive tier only. So in this dialog, I select the NAS device, which I have configured before. And yeah, it is important to know how we store archive files. So when we archive files, we pack them up into container files. So the maximum container files file size can be adjusted in this section here. So for example, you can set it to 10 gigabyte. Yeah, and the container format is UDF, yeah, which is a standard format, and you can read it with any client. You can read it with Windows, Linux, or Mac OS client. So in production and operation, this isn't necessary, but it is a good good to know. So there's no vendor login. And as you can imagine, handling a few thousands of very large files, large container files, is much easier than millions or billions of very small files. So, and yeah, if you want files to be removed from the archive when you delete the stub or the link in the primary storage, you can enable this here. Yeah, so we support automatic deletion from the archive, depending on your behavior on the primary storage. Yeah, but however, the files are not deleted immediately. Yeah, but after a certain period of time. So this is an option here. Okay. So and yeah, we before we can finish the storage vault configuration, we have of course to configure and set a policy which defines what files should be processed and what actions should be taken. Yeah. So let me create a new policy here and give it a name. Okay, this interface here looks it looks very similar to an Outlook rule, a Microsoft Outlook rule, and we have one or more conditions here, and then one or more actions. Yeah. So, for example, you could say we would like to take all files older than a specific date. So we can do this on the based on the creation or modification time. So for example, 30 days. And yeah, maybe the second condition is we take only files larger than 8 kilobyte, just to give you an example. Yeah. And if these two conditions are true, we want to archive the files, which means the files are copied to the archive. Yeah. So, but yeah, in my demo here, I will use a different setup. So let me select this one here. I will take all new files or all files which are new to our system, and I will archive them and then purge them, which means the original file is being replaced by a small stub. Okay. And finally, you can configure a schedule to define when the archiving job should run. So, for example, once a week or every night. Okay, so yeah, let us start the job manually now. And yeah, before we start the job, we have the opportunity to change the settings for this specific job here. So, but let me execute it now. So now it is scanning the file system. Then it puts the files into a container, and then it will write the container to the NAS target. Okay, so let us now go back to our file server here. And here we can see the original files has been replaced by a stub. Yeah, so but a stub differs only in the size on disk to the original file. I can show you the properties. Oh, select the file first. So we can see here, this is a still the same size we have seen before, but the size on disk is 0. Yeah, this is because of Windows. Of course, there are a few bytes of metadata. Yeah, and the icon has changed a little bit. So we have this X, this cross here, and yeah, this indicates the file is archived, and the retrieval could take a bit longer. Yeah. So let me open the file here again. So when we open a file, it will not initiate recall to the primary storage, and yeah, this is what we call the pass-through feature. Yeah. Okay. So it works like before, and Yeah, let me now edit a file. So for example, I take this one here. Type something in and I save this modification. Yeah, and this new version will be stored on our primary storage. Yeah, as you can see, the icon indicates here. Yeah, so it's stored on the this new version is stored on the primary storage, but the original one is protected in the archive. And when we now start the storage manager job again, yeah, now it is archived, and we have a new version in our storage manager. Let me show you in our data browser here. So here we have the file. Yeah. So we have two versions. One is deleted, which means there's no stop on the file system, and we have the current version. Yeah. So let me select the original one and start a copy job, so we can restore the original one to the same folder. And I recommend to append the file version so we can see the difference. So start job, and let's go back here. So here's the original one. Let me open this file. Yeah, and it's without the modification. So this is how the file versioning works. Next, I would like to show you the retention management. So let us assume you want to set a retention for 15 years based on the date the file was archived. Yeah. So let me open the retention management here. We are going to apply the retention to the demo 12 folder. Yes. And based on the archive time, 15 years, without any filters. Yeah, so for example, you could filter for specific file extension here. No, but let me close this here. And finally, I have to apply the new retention policies. So you can extend a retention period, but you're not able to shorten it. And during the retention period, files cannot be deleted. You know, this is only possible with very special rights. For example, to be conform with GDPR. So, and yeah, let me now show you in the data browser that the retention period has been applied. So here we can see the retention time will expire in 15 years. Okay. Yeah, and as I've explained in my slides, you can use the centralized control. Yeah, to define the rules and can use the schedule and so on. But you have the option to use the user-controlled archiving as well. So let us configure this over here. So let me query the share first of all, yeah, and then we can define the commands which will be shown in the end user Explorer extension. So for example, move to archive. So this is a command and the command name which will be shown in the Explorer extension. And here we define the actual rule. So for example, archive all. And again, I select all new files or files which has been changed. And we will archive them and replace them with a small stop. Yes. Yeah, and here you can define the required file permission to be able to do this, to apply this command to a file. Yeah, so you can select, you must be owner of the file, you have read or write permissions. Okay, and let me now start the user-controlled archiving extension. So you will see a small icon here in your task bar. Now we can go back to our file system. And let me create a new file. Demo 1, 2, 3. And now I can use the user-controlled archiving to move the file to the archive. So when you select a file for the archiving process, it will be queued. So you can see it here when you open the client application. And next time, you can see it as well in the administration interface. And next time the storage manager runs, it will archive the file. So now it is in the archive and it has been replaced by a stop. Okay, and finally, I would like to show you the archive migration. Yeah. So maybe you start with archiving to a network attached storage, like in my demo environment. And in a few years, you want to refresh your technology and move maybe to an object storage. So the first step is to configure a new archive device. Yeah. I've already configured an object storage here. Yeah. So let me show you the configuration interface here. Yeah. So you type in the address, or the access, the secret key, the port, and so on. And then we can change our existing storage vault and add the new or the additional archive device here. Okay, So let me now start the archive volume migration, which will copy all existing archive volumes or containers from the NAS device to the object storage. So the entire process runs in the background with any interruption, and yeah, because we use the container files, the process is accelerated. Yeah. So let me close this one. Okay. And yeah, finally remove the old archive device, so the NAS device from here. Let me close this. And when we now open a file, maybe I select a different one, this one. We're still able to open the file, of course, but now we're using the new archive device, which is an object storage in our case. Okay, yeah, and that brings me to the end of my live demo. So thank you very much for your attention. And if you would like to try the Point Storage Manager in your environment, simply go to our website and download it. Yeah. So thank you very much for your time and have a nice day.